doubting myself was an anxiety that wasn't necessary. I didn't have to, but I did for plenty nights. So I'm hoping that this podcast episode allows for you to not have to beat yourself up. And if self-doubt arises, instead of pushing it away and resisting it, which will cause for self-doubt to come and hug us very tightly, because anything that we resist persists, now we can welcome it in. We can investigate it. Hey, you feel that?
You are now tuned into You Feel That with Bryce the Third.
Yo, and welcome to another episode of You Feel That with Bryce the Third, the most authentic Black-owned emotional and mental empowerment podcast, period. And I am, of course, your host, Bryce the Third, with the new drip. Oh, you see the hat? You see the hat if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, I need you to comment in the comments that you want a hat like this, and I'll go ahead and make these hats happen. I'll put them on the website before you can say, I bet y'all can't even say But all pleasantries aside, we're getting into a topic today that I'm very familiar with and that I consistently have to build a process around, and that is worry and anxiety stemming from self-doubt. And to be honest with you, like 100% honest and transparent, like this is my second time sitting down and trying to record this episode, and it's very funny and almost, I don't even know the word for it, right? But this is an episode on self-doubt. And every time like the first time and even this time, sitting down to record an episode about self-doubt is creeping up. Like this is a thing that your favorite influencers or people that you look up to like deal with on a daily basis, but they probably aren't speaking about it, because pursuing anything of greatness, pursuing a life that is aligned with our desired reality, self-doubt is kind of baked into that. Like, and I really think, like, for speaking from like my personal perspective, I think that self-doubt can be a good indication, and we're gonna get into that in a second. But just know that if you're going through or dealing with like elements of self-doubt in your life, I just want to start this episode out by letting you know, like, you're not alone. And this podcast episode will be a testament to that, because I am going to do my best to show up as authentic as I possibly can, because I know a little bit, right? So, y'all know my phrase, I don't know shit, right? The more I learn, the more I find out I don't know. And really showing up to this podcast and pulling out these topics and doing the research that I do to figure out more about these topics, I learned a lot about myself and my own process. And some things become even more transparent in my process than maybe they were before I did the research for you guys. So it's like, for you guys and gals. So it's like, this is a process of growth for everybody involved. Like, You Feel That is a community, and we're learning and growing together. And I had the Good Talk Tuesday this past Tuesday, and a lot of people were just speaking on how much that they love the community, how much they love the element of growth and continuous development here. And that's just what I aim to create. Like, I aim to create this space where we get honest, transparent, open, grab some new tools, figure out what tools work for us, and apply them to our lives. And today we're going to dig into self-doubt being one of those things that we may combat on a daily basis. And let's talk about some tools that we may use to help eliminate or bring about the cessation of self-doubt in our lives. So starting out, what is self-doubt, right? So the definition I found for self-doubt is a lack of confidence in the reliability of one's own motives, personality, thought, etc. A lack of faith in oneself, a feeling of doubt or uncertainty about one's abilities and actions. And my personal definition is those moments where I feel like I don't belong in a room. I feel like I can't do what it is that I've set out to do. Yesterday, when I sat down to do this podcast, I was looking at the camera and I'm like, the angle sucks, and I'm listening to my voice. I don't like my voice. I can't carry, like, I kept starting and stopping, and it's like, damn, this is going to be a bitch to edit. Like I don't think I can do this. Like, this is only episode blah, 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 right? Like, whatever episode this ends up being, like, this is only episode blah, blah, blah. And I don't think I can do this. Like, there's people that, the people I look up to, School of Greatness. I forgot my man's name, but I want to give him a shout out. School of Greatness is a great podcast. I've been listening to it for forever. But yesterday I was listening, and he's on his like 1100th episode, and his episodes are like 50 minutes long. I'm like, wow, I'm on episode blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm in the single digits still. And It's like, can I do this? I don't know. And that can suck. That can suck. The process of me having to be my biggest cheerleader, but also at the same time, like having these thoughts of like, damn, can I really do this? Like, I've set out to do this thing. Like, I can I do this or not? Like those, like I'm my biggest cheerleader, but I also am a doubt and worrier. So it's like, how can we either balance these things out or allow compassion for the doubt and worry as a part of the process that allows for us to show up to our fullest capacity, because we need to be in whatever it is that we're setting out to do at our fullest capacity if we ever expect to make any type of change or impact, right? Like we need to really be here. And in order to be here, anything I've learned that anything that I push away tends to kind of hug me. Anything I push away like comes back full force. So how can we take this thing, this self-doubt, this worry and anxiety, and not push it away and put our fingers in our ears, la 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 la, it's not happening, but like allow for it and give it love and understanding and figure out like what is here to teach us and allow it to teach us while we show up to our fullest capacity. How can we do that? So a good way to get jumped off with the answer to that question is by identification. Let's look at a couple of flavors of self-doubt. One, you got imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is the irrational fear of being a fraud or not deserving of your accomplishments. And like I said earlier, like when self-doubt hits, like, damn, like I'm in this room and do I even belong here? Like I'm looking around like, do I even have the capacity to be here? Was it a fluke that I got here? A good friend of mine had once told me, don't even question if you're supposed to be in the room or not. Don't even trip on if you're supposed to be in the room or not. You're in the fucking room. You're here. You're here. No matter how you got here, you're here. So don't trip about if you belong here because you're here. So let's get that off your shoulder. Or if it's there, like allow it to be there, but don't trip on it. Just allow it to be there and move accordingly because we here, baby. We here. We already in the room, right? Number 2 type, self-sabotage, the tendency to undermine your own goals and values. For example, after working successfully, sticking to your new diet program for 2 months, you binge on junk food 3 nights in a row. So self-sabotage, undermining your own goals and values. So like yesterday, I took a good 2 hours to even get in a podcast studio and begin recording a podcast. Like I was in my head so much about not feeling like it and not really like feeling like I can do it and not sure of the research that I've done for this episode and not sure of myself and not sure of the podcast in general and just like all this stuff that it took me like 2 hours to even get in here. And then when I got in here, like I got started and I just like, it just didn't work for me. Now, there's a happy part to the story because I have some elements in place to allow for compassion and self-care. What I did is when I got out of here, like I worked on the runs of shows for a couple other episodes. So I did something. But like speaking in front of the camera yesterday just wasn't my day. This topic I couldn't show up to my fullest capacity and I didn't want to just phone it in. And there's also some other things too that I'm dealing with, like pressure of deadlines and stuff like that. Like I just don't create well under those pressures. So what I learned is like, okay, well, what else can I do? So I did dig in and do other runs of shows. And I also journaled. And I have this self-care deck of cards from We Are Not Really Strangers. And I pulled a card and then, it asked me a question and I answered that question. And like I got into my flow. And these are tools that I'm able to use. And it's good to have tools in place for when self-doubt kick in to be able to combat it, right? Like specific tools that speak to our specific process and what we specifically need when faced with the challenges that self-doubt may present. Self-sabotage. There's plenty of ways for me to sabotage myself. So what's the opposite of self-sabotage? Self-empowerment, right? So how can I empower myself even when things are difficult? How can I empower myself especially when things are difficult? Because that's when I need that empowerment the most. Type number 3 is self-doubt, indecisiveness. Ooh. Indecisiveness is when you consistently struggle to make even small decisions for fear of making the wrong decision and whatever consequences may result. And I've been that person for real. I could be that person today, for real. I don't know if it was Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich or if it was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, but there's something in there about being quick to make a decision and being slow to change it. And that's counterintuitive. That's counterintuitive to somebody like me. Like I want to take my time. I want to make I want to make a decision, an informed decision, right? But what I've learned is, and this has just set me apart from so many different people, where people get paralyzed by all the different decisions and by like, what should I do? Should I do this? And then want to consult me and then ask me, and then you can see it looking in their, you can see the look in their eyes, and they want me to kind of answer it for them or give them direction that they should probably have themselves, because it's their life and nobody has a monopoly on what's right. Like for me, I've learned like shit. I just make the decision. I just make the decision. And people assume that because I'm so quick to make the decision that I'm tapped into my intuition, which that followed, but I didn't always have that intuitive notion. Like it was just, I just started, okay, yes, no. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, I'm doing that. And then thinking about it afterwards, and maybe if I saw like how things happen or didn't happen, like it's like, okay, well maybe next time I'll do that, or maybe next time I won't do that. But indecisiveness, I've been there, and I can get there when there's a lack of clarity, when I'm not sure as to where it is I'm going or what it is I'm doing. So imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, and indecisiveness, 3 different types of self-doubt. And I'm pretty sure there's a ton of other flavors, but these are the ones that I immediately came upon. All right, let's get into like some of the effects, some of the symptoms of self-doubt, some of the things that we go through when we're dealing with self-doubt in real time. This can range from anxiety, depression, procrastination or lack of motivation, emotional instability, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, difficulty making decisions, feeling as if one has little control over one's life. And I'm not going to hold you. Each and every one of those things I've experienced for sure. Emotional instability. Come on now. We are on You Feel That, the premier podcast for those seeking to grow, exceed, and excel in the world as a highly sensitive person. I'm highly sensitive. There's been plenty of times where I didn't have the stability emotionally to carry on for it. Like I had to stop, like, okay, stop the train. I got to get off. And low self-esteem, low self-confidence, like, especially when stepping into something new, like I've never done it before, depression, anxiety. I've dealt with all these things. Procrastination or lack of motivation. Come on now. Like these things are speaking to my soul. Feeling as if one has little control over one's life. And this was a big thing when I used to work for the automotive factory I used to work for. I used to be in there and I used to just really feel it's like, damn, like I gotta be here and I gotta clock in every day at this time, and they talking to me like I ain't shit, and I gotta do what they say, and I just felt like I ain't had no control of my own life, and it just caused for like even at that time when I'm at this plant and I'm trying to get up out of there and I'm doing these things, I'm setting these plays up that are going to allow me to get up out of there. Like nobody in here is out of here. Everybody in here is in here. So how am I so sure that I'm going to be somebody that gets out of here? Because everybody here is here. Like I don't see any evidence. I don't see anything that insinuates that these things that I believe to be true will actually come true. Like this is all just faith at this point. Like there's nothing materialized. So that can cause for self-doubt. Like how I'm going to do this. Like you got your good days, your bad days, and then your blah days, And so I dealt with a lot of that. And just as a quick disclaimer as well, like You Feel That is one of the many tools that you have to use at your disposal. I highly recommend taking advantage of others, such as professional counseling, group therapy, support groups. I belong to a 12-step program as well. Like, I do some different types of integration and just it's just a lot of tools out here that we can pull from. And I suggest that you diversify your tool set and don't just, this is good if this is the first time you've ever decided to intentionally think about living life intentionally aligned with your desired emotional reality and desired reality in general. But just as a disclaimer, like I ain't no medical professional. I'm just a person who used these things in his own life and is creating a life that I desire, and I want you to be able to do so too. So I'm here to share it with you on You Feel That. You feel that? Yeah. Seek the help you need. And I also want to take a second to talk about, like I mentioned earlier, why like self-doubt is a natural, important part of the process. Like we all can experience self-doubt from time to time, especially those of us reaching out for more. If we innately believed we could do what we're setting out to do, we'd already be doing it. Like self-doubt is the natural process of growth and change. Like if self-doubt kicks in a lot when we are reaching for a life unlike the one that we live. So I mentioned working at the assembly plant and like being in it, but not wanting to be in it anymore. But the only evidence that I seen was that I will continue to be in it, because you got people that come to this plant and complain every day, but they still fucking show up. They say that they don't want this and they want something more, but they still showing up and doing what it was that they was doing. So that self-doubt would kick in, like, what makes me any different? Even though I was setting up these plays, and even if, like, and we talking about setting up plays, like a lot of people, you know, I'm setting up plays and I'm making these moves, but for me, like, a big part of setting up the plays was like listening to stuff like this. There was a Bryce the Third for me. There was a You Feel That, the podcast for me. And it came in the form of Entrepreneur on Fire with John Lee Dumas and Brendan Bouchard and the Success Magazine podcast and Bob Proctor and the 48 Days to the Work You Love with Dan Miller. And like, I would listen to all these podcasts, all these audio books while I was in there. I'm working 10 hours a day. I might as well listen to these things. That was a play for me. That was a play I was running. Like, I'm filling my spirit with all of these new thoughts and opinions instead of talking to people in this factory, asking them how their day is, and they're like, oh, another day in paradise. Like, that's just gonna add to my self-doubt. That's just gonna add to my self-doubt because self-doubt is super contagious. Self-doubt is super contagious, as we'll come to find in, you know, our tools that we're going to discuss. Like, it's important to have people around you that can see how far you've gone, even when you can't see it. But like, when you're in this environment where you're trying to make it out of, like, everybody there is probably along the same lines of where you used to be and don't want to be anymore. So self-doubt is a natural, important part of the process, and it's indication that you are growing and getting out of what you used to be in, and you are in the process of making something different happen. Like, to be honest, I look at self-doubt as a good indication that a person really cares about what it is that they're doing. Like, doubting myself yesterday when I sat down to make this show, and I couldn't do it. Like that self-doubt kicked in because I want to give y'all the best experience possible. I want to give y'all the best tools I could possibly give y'all. Like, I want to give y'all something that's going to impact y'all lives. Like, I've gotten the DMs. People have reached out. People have sent the voice notes like, you know, this is how it's hitting. And it's like, oh shit, I got a responsibility to like really like not get no fluff. Like, this isn't, yes, I'm building a business and we're looking to be able to support myself and feed my family with some of these things, right? But first and foremost, I'm leading with, what can I get y'all? Can we change lives with this? So that self-doubt will kick in like, oh, that's a big goal, buddy. That's a big damn goal. Are you sure you can do that? Like, who are you to be able to do that? You know, like, and then the impostor syndrome kicks in. But it's like, I think that's a great indication that you are a person that really cares about what it is that you're doing if self-doubt shows up. So, like, don't be so quick to like, oh, I doubt myself. And like, people who are great don't doubt themselves. Because there's some people that preach that. Like, you'll go places, you know, places on the internet and to different mentors, and they're like, no, you can't doubt yourself. Losers doubt yourself. Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, bro, like, chill out, bro. Like everybody has doubt. Everybody has doubt, even those who don't admit it. And anybody who resists something like very hard, or like denounces something like very hard, like they kind of creep me out, because it's like, you probably in the closet about something, or you're like, why don't you like that? Why are you so vocal about not liking that? Like, why are you so opposed to that? Like, are you okay? You need a hug? You know, like, we all go through everything for real. And then also there's this quote, I forgot who told me this. Who told me this? When they told me that, I wrote it down and I sent it to somebody. I didn't even actually understand what it meant when I sent it to the somebody that I sent it to. And it was so interesting that it turned out that the reason I sent it to the person that I sent it to was because when I was going through something, this person said that to me, like, didn't you say this to me? And I was like, oh shit. Like, I didn't even understand it when I sent it to that person though. So when faith is healthy, it wanes. When faith is healthy, it wanes. Not shit ain't always this way. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna make it happen. Yeah. Like it's not always that way. Like, sometimes it's like, shit, like, am I doing the right thing? Like, but then so like learning how to go up and down with it, and learning how to flow with it, and allow for it to go through its natural process, and know that that's a healthy part of the process. So here we go. Favorite part of the show for everybody, right? Where we start getting into the tools. So here are tools to combat self-doubt. And we're going to start with identifying your values. Identifying your values, identifying what it is that you believe in, identifying where it is that you fall in life, identifying where it is that you want to go, identifying what is important to your process, identifying what it is that you care about. A mental breakdown is a result of lack of clarity. And this was said to me recently when I was in the midst of a mental breakdown. like seriously, I was going through it, and there was a lot of stuff I wasn't paying attention to, and all those emotions and all those worries, all those fears, all those actions have bottlenecked and manifested in like a literal breakdown. And when I talked to the person who helped work me through it, they had told me like mental clarity is what is lacking when you have a mental breakdown. And so it's important to know, where are we going? Like, what do we care about? What's important to us? What's the mission here? What's the goal here? And even especially keeping track, and this is what I'm learning too, like keeping track of what it is that you've done. Like, and that's another tool that we're gonna talk on. But like getting a feel for the environment that we're in when it comes to the action that we're taking. Because if we're taking misaligned action, then it's easier for us to have self-doubt, because it's like, what are we even doing? Like, why am I even here? You know, like, what matters most to you? And fear of criticism falls to the wayside when we live aligned with our values. So taking the opportunity to like really define what our values are, and also like giving yourself understanding, because values and hopes and dreams, like those things are going to change. Like there's some things that even on the outset of beginning something, like you may just have things like topical things, or you may just have like broad strokes. Like that's cool too. Just get a finger on a pulse of like maybe what it is that you care about, and allow for that to develop and grow as you go along. And remember to keep checking in, because that's how my recent breakthrough had happened. Was I hadn't checked in a minute. And this isn't a linear process. This isn't a one time and you're done process. It's a continuous process of checking in with ourselves and figuring out continuously what it is that we want, because the environment will change, especially if we tap into a life of rapid growth. You talked to me 3 months ago and then talked to me 3 months after that, and I'm gonna fuck around and be a whole different type of person. I'm gonna fuck around and be a whole different character. I go through rapid growth, and with that rapid growth, there has to be rapid check-ins, you know. This identifying our values also lends to faith in self and lack of reliance on outside validation. So like a lot of us, especially, you know, where we'll rely on what mommy and daddy say, or what grandma say, or what people think about you, and I'm not gonna take this step. Or even like I was listening to a podcast earlier, and this girl was going to a school that she didn't want to go to, and she wanted to go to another school, but her parents wanted her to go to this school, but she was in the midst of the transition from this school to the other school, and she felt really cool about it, but she was scared about what her parents would think. And it's like, so that just goes to show she's identified her values. This is what's important to her, and she chose doing what's important to her versus doing what's important to her people, which at the end of the day, like if her people really care and love her, then what's important for her will be what's important for her people, you know. Like it's a process to be able to believe and have faith in ourselves to that capacity, to allow ourselves to take action regardless of what other people may think. And it's a continuous relationship with ourselves that we build to be able to like continue to cultivate that strength, continue to cultivate that ability. Because there's been times where, you know, I just move with the crowd. You know, I just go, well, y'all think that's cool, well, I'm gonna do that. Or y'all think it's cool for me to, and I'm still like, I'm not exempt. Like I'm still working on being transparent, open, honest, and authentic in a way that kind of is accepting of the fact that some people not gonna fuck with this. Like some people are not gonna want to hear what it is that I have to say. Some people might, you know, and I'm learning that you might be doing something good if somebody is against what it is that you're saying, because then it lets you know, oh, like I'm really digging into speaking from the chest and speaking from the heart about what it is that I care about. So, you know, identifying our values, knowing what it is that we care about, like that's number one. That's the number one tool to combat self-doubt. All right, number 2 tool for combating self-doubt: getting to know our fear. Becoming friends with what scares us, getting to know our fear and how it shows up. Like fear is a mechanism literally created to keep you safe and comfortable. This becomes problematic when your path of becoming your most successful self requires you to constantly strive into unknown territory to create change and progress. If you never learn the role that fear plays in your growth and success, it can sabotage your process. So beginning to investigate how fear shows up in our lives allows for us to anticipate the resistance we'll feel whenever we approach the edge of our comfort zone in pursuit of our growth. Learning to identify our fears allows for us to bring awareness to that automatic process, maybe even for the first time. And awareness can make big things small or small things big. So like learning to tap into our fear in a way that really allows for us to become buddy with our fear. If fear is just something that's automatically ran in the background, then when it shows up, it's just like, oh, I'm scared. Like, that's just it. That's it. That's as far as it goes. But once we begin living an intentional life and having an intentional relationship with ourselves, our emotions, and our process, and looking to build emotional process intentionally, then we can use fear in the way that it shows up as a way to allow for us to investigate what specifically scares us. Because what scares you ain't going to scare me, because you and I'm me. You see what I'm saying? So, and then when we bring attention to things, if it ain't going to kill us, like now we're aware of it, we could see it. It's like, oh, you're not that scary. Awareness makes small things big and big things small. And this is a good principle to keep in your pocket, because things that scare you or things that once were like huge and like these big things, I can never, let me never talk to anybody about this. Once we bring awareness to it, it's like, boom, it gets small. It gets small. Now, on the other side of it is, the spiritual principle, where it's like it also makes small things big. So if we are looking to magnify our faith, if we are looking to magnify things that we care about, if we are looking to magnify the presence of Tesla Model X's in our lives, and let me tell you, ever since I made that episode where I told you, I announced to the world that I'm going to have a Tesla, like all I see is Teslas. Like everywhere I go, I'm haunted. And it's so funny. It's hilarious. Like, but I'm making this thing that I used to not see as much. Like it's huge now in my life because I brought it into my zone of awareness. Like awareness makes small things big and big things small. So learning to pay attention to our fear. And that way, if we can assess the situation and see that there is not a threat to our physical body, but just really a threat to our old habits and beliefs, then we know fear is overreacting and we can take action in spite of it. And that is the process of bringing awareness to this thing that will once debilitate us and paralyze us, and use it as a way to confirm that we're doing what it is that we're supposed to be doing. Like I'm doing what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. Because I know, like when I'm pushing, when I'm growing, like, oh, here it comes. Here it comes. You ain't supposed to be doing this. Who the fuck you think you is? What the fuck you think you ain't? You ain't in the neighborhood no more. Wow. They don't even do this where you're from. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a familiar voice. Yep, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Let me do this and let me bang this out and let me do the best that I possibly can. And it's crazy. Like, I just got off a call and like people are requesting me for things that like I was once scared to do. People are requesting Bryce by name. Like we want Bryce to do that. Like we saw what Bryce did last time and he got crazy. Like let's see if he could do it. Does he have the bandwidth? Does he have the capacity to do that? Like people are requesting me for things that like I once had. Like I had that little voice, that voice of fear told me you can't do that. Who the fuck is you? So it's crazy. It's crazy. But learning to learning to redefine this relationship that we have with fear, and that it's not just like a fucking feeling that comes in that we have no control over and that serves no purpose. No, it's just like if I put my hand on a stove and it burns me. We've talked about this before. If I put my hand on the stove and it burns me, the pain ain't that bad. Depending on the burn, but I mean, like the pain in what it serves, if I use it to show me that maybe I shouldn't put my hand on the stove, like it's there for a reason. So what is the fear here telling us? So getting to know our fear and thinking through it, using mindfulness to like really figure out what our fear is there to tell us, is number 2 to combating self-doubt. All right, the next tool is to practice self-compassion. And I'm about to just get this shit tatted on my face like Daylight, the battle rapper. I'm going to just get, instead of like the Spawn things, I'm going to just get practice self-compassion, like, and it's just gonna be like this. I'm gonna be like, I'm that guy. If I die, just put it on my tombstone, like, have compassion for yourself. Make that the representation. Like everything that I do, have compassion for yourself. Like from music, the music that I record and that I make, to this podcast, to my books that I write, to the courses. If you wanted to save yourself a lot of money and not help me feed my daughter, no, I'm playing. But if you wanted to save yourself a lot of money, just take the notion that you need to have compassion for yourself. Put that in your heart and you good. You could turn this podcast off. You don't need to tune in to no more podcasts, and you don't need to hit me up for any type of coaching. You don't need to buy my book. You don't need to grab my course. You don't need to listen to the music. You don't need to do none of that. Just have compassion for yourself. That's the key. When we doubt our abilities, it's often because we don't want to make room for our mistakes. However, mistakes are also how we learn and grow. We can mitigate self-doubt and fear of failure by practicing being kind to ourselves no matter the outcome. No matter the outcome. Because there's always something to learn. There's always something to learn from our experience. And who do you think you are, sir? Who do you think you are, ma'am? Who do you think you are to think that you'll never make a mistake? And how kind is that to beat ourselves down if we do make a mistake? I live by this ethos, no bad trips. And really what that insinuates is that, like, even in our worst circumstances, it's there to teach us something. If we don't make mistakes, we can't learn. If we don't learn, we don't get better. And that's what we're trying to do, right? That's why you're here. It's to get better. It's to grow. You have a desired reality that you're looking to obtain and grow into, right? So you gotta make mistakes. And in order to make mistakes, you gotta allow yourself to make the mistakes. You're never gonna be perfect. And I can always see it in somebody's face where their voice, they don't scream as loud as they can. They don't sing. They don't project as powerful as they can, and that they have the ability to, because they're afraid to make a mistake. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Because I just want to I don't know if y'all seen Hustle and Flow, but like, push that shit out of you. I just want to just get that out of you, because fuck it, we going to make a mistake. I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to make all the mistakes. I'm going to do them in public, and I'm going to do them fast. I'm going to do them ugly. I'm going to do them loud. And I might have a mental breakdown every now and then, but it's worth it. It's worth it. You know why it's worth it? Because I'm not working in that assembly plant doing what I don't want to do because I'm afraid to make a mistake and I need to play it safe. That's why it's fucking perfect. Because I'm not holding myself. I'm not turning down the volume on myself because I'm afraid of what you'll think or what it'll look like. I care about my process enough to show up and fuck up. And with that, we have to remember to give ourselves understanding and compassion. And back to yesterday, when I sat in and I tried to record this episode with this topic yesterday, I tried to record this episode, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode. And when I left the studio, because it just got to a point to where I'm just in the studio like, and I really tried, and it really just felt like I was fighting uphill. So I cut it off. And I left the podcast studio. And it was at that moment that previously, I don't know, I might have went and got some white chocolate Reese's and fucking turned on the TV and you know, and gave up my aspirations to be a podcaster and to add value to the world. But instead, what I did was I had compassion for myself. And by giving myself compassion, it allowed for me to see the opportunity in this circumstance. Like, okay, maybe I don't need to be on camera today because I'm just not feeling it today. And matter of fact, let me pull out my journal so I can investigate like why, like what this is and what elements exist here. And for me, the elements that existed was like, okay, I don't have too many podcast episodes in a bank, and I feel like it's absolutely necessary. I'm pressured to have this episode banged out so I can have a good episode on Monday. And it's like, oh, well, I don't need to be in that predicament. So I need to prioritize preparing more and having more episodes of this podcast in the bank. So I'm not trying to bang out one episode per week and knowing how much goes into this thing. Like, if I don't do this job, then it doesn't get done. And then the people who are depending on the value that I add, like, are sitting there like, well, where you're at? And I feel like pressure. Like, I just don't operate well that way. So instead of beating myself up, like, you piece of crap, like, you should have did better. Like, it's like, okay, well, this is what I need. Like, I need this. And if I do this, then, maybe we can make it to where like I empower myself to be able to show up and not have that pressure on me. And then maybe I could perform better. And let me grab this journal and let me write out about it and let me work it out, because maybe there's some epiphanies to be had from this experience. And let me take this we are really not strangers, or whatever the card game is. It's the self-love deck. I pulled the card and then it asked me a question like, what is the best thing that you like about, what do you like best about the age that you're at? Or it's just like some type of self-love question, and it allowed me to go in and like really like meditate upon what I fuck with about myself. And I did a couple of runs of shows, so I still got some work done. And then I did some Instagram content for Bryce the Third, at Bryce the Third on Instagram, my Instagram page. So I got things done, but the only reason I was able to get things done was because I was able to have compassion for myself. Because if I was beating myself up, like it would have just been all bad. Because if I was beating myself up, it would have been no space for opportunity. If I was holding myself in a chokehold, it wouldn't have been no space for me to breathe. And while we talking about breathing, compassion is breath. So if you ever feel yourself being too hard on yourself, take a fucking breath. Matter of fact, let's stop. Let's stop right now. Take a breath right now. Inhale. Feel the core. Feel the body rise. Exhale. One more. Inhale. Exhale. I feel better. I hope y'all feel better. Have compassion for yourself. We getting you together this episode. Authenticity, baby. Prioritization of that real shit. We getting you together. Yeah. Next tool. Remembering your past achievements. Now this is new for me. So remembering my past achievements have been a challenge for me. I don't know why. I think it's the way that I conceive time. But I'm always kind of like, I need to bang this thing out. I can do better. Like everything I've ever done, which is crazy thus far, and I'm working on it. But everything I've done, like people would say, oh, you did such a great job. You killed that shit. And it's like, yeah, but I could have did better. Yeah, I could have improved on that. Yeah, I could have went crazier. Oh yeah, but next time I'm gonna do this. Oh yeah, I want to pivot on this. Or, oh yeah, I'm trying to work this out. Woo. Because I think that's inherent in creativity, especially like when a lot of the stuff that I've made manifest like starts in my head and nobody's there, and it's the process of creating what's in my head. Like it's a creative process. So it's like sometimes I can just be a little hard. I guess it's authentic. We talking authenticity. What's happening in front of your face right now is I'm trying to justify the fact that I don't give myself enough credit for the things that I've achieved. Yep, we're going all the way there. What you're seeing, what you're hearing on this podcast is a person in real life working through the fact that I don't give myself enough credit for the things that I've achieved. But I'm working on it. And on my whiteboard, I got a little space where I'm starting for this year, 2021, to document some of the things that I've achieved this year, which allows for me to kind of like look back and say, oh yeah, I did do that. Oh yeah, I did get that done. Oh yeah, I did do that. And what I'm learning is it's kind of giving me gas, like it's putting a battery in my back. Well, I did that. Let me get down and do this then. I could do that. I remember how much was required to get that done. And like I remember how much I was stressing all throughout it. Maybe let's not stress as much this time on this thing, because just like that, I can get this done, Another aspect to like remembering past achievements is, so I went and taught like first, second, and third hour at this one school, this local school, Advanced Technology Academy in Dearborn. Shout out to the teachers in America, by the way, because y'all don't get paid damn near enough to do what y'all do. You are essential, you are wonderful, and you are exactly what these kids need. Keep tapping into these kids and giving these kids your energy. But what I was telling the kids when I came was like, do y'all think I was prepared for this? Because I've speaking at schools a couple of times, but like never like in a classroom. Like it'll be like I'm booked for a presentation or something like that, where it's like the whole school comes out, but never like just for a classroom, except for my daughter's classroom, and we did some music. That was a different thing. But I had to ask them, like, do you think that I was prepared? Like, do you think that I thought I could do this? And it was like, someone was like, yeah, and someone was like, nah. And I had to tell them, like, nah, I mean, I didn't think I could do this really for real, but I knew that I needed to do this because once I do it, I've done it. So now the next time I'm asked to do it, like I did it. I already did it. So of course, yeah, I'm going to slide through. Anybody ever asked me to come and teach their class for a couple of hours, we might be, I might not want to do it for free, but I know that I have the capability to do it because I've done it now. But I had to do it to get it out the way. And once I did it, like I've done it. So like remembering our past achievements helps for us to get rid of that self-doubt where it's like, I don't know if I can do it. It's like, well, what are you going to tell me? I've done it. Like you can't tell me I can't do it. I've done it before. Like, who are you? Who are you to say I can't do it? I literally experienced doing it and I'll do it again. So remembering our past achievements, it helps remind ourselves about the times that things have gone right because the same thing can happen in the present moment. So the first before last tool is seeking connectivity with self and others. And really and truly, like, you feel that with Bryce the Third could really be called the Compassion and Community Show. I don't like it. The Compassion and Community Show. Because community is always going to continuously pop up in my recommendations for tools, because community has been one of the greatest aspects of my life. Like, there's so many different pieces of Bryce the Third. There's so many different things that I'm interested in. There's so many levels of emotional and mental wellness and empowerment for myself and my own process that I get from just different communities. 12-step, psychedelic integration, counseling and therapy, the Association of Contextual Behavior Sciences, recovery dharma, Buddhism, physical activity, the Phoenix, sober active community. Like, it's just all these parenthood, fatherhood. Like, there's just so many different communities that I can go to that I can pull some support out of. And it's very important that we don't do this shit alone. Because, like, loneliness, feeling like we're in it alone, will break us down and allow for us to like spiral into the rumination of self-doubt even more, learning to practice the opposite of what your old mind may tell you. And in this context, like, that's spending time with supportive peeps, even when you may not want to. Like, it stops that downward spiral and rumination, and they can remind you of how talented and resilient you are during times where you're not feeling that way about yourself. So to have like these communities, and a lot of times, like, you'll say these things to people and people will be like, well, I don't have that. I just don't have that. And that's okay. But I believe in your potential more than I believe in your excuses. So there are a lot of ways to find it. There's a lot of ways to look for it. There are a lot of meetup.com, thephoenix.org, which is sober active community. All of their programs are free to anybody with just 48 hours of sobriety, 12-step programs, Facebook groups, all type of meetups. There's some meetups that you can pay to get into, entrepreneurship meetups, and a lot of meetups that are free. I just don't want to let you live when you talk about like you don't have that. I just don't have that where I'm at. Because like I come from spaces where I'm surrounded by nothing but death and poverty mindset and suckiness. But I found, like, I went out and saw it. Like, I saw community as much as I didn't want to, because as much as I wanted to just be left alone and then be alone and then be like, I'm so lonely. As much as I wanted that, like, I knew what was good for me was to get outside of what it was that I knew, and I needed to go. And so that might mean like going in different areas and places where you're uncomfortable. I'm not going to say that might mean, that definitely means that, but that's what's required. If this is the life that you want, a life where you're emotionally and mentally empowered, like, you're going to have to do that, Also, connectivity with yourself, like journaling. Like, journaling can lead to aha moments, epiphanies, and realizations, and you may be able to peep patterns that's like, oh, this is why. Like, and let me tell you something about journaling, any type of journaling, right? So I've done time journaling, which some like to call a schedule, and with that, like, I've learned more about my time, where it's like, oh, like, I tend to do this more. Like, what I do is I got this paper schedule, and I use different colored pens for like different type of activities. So like pink is quality time, purple is growth activities, blue is well-being activities, green is money activities, yellow is light work, like the work, my creative work that I'm supposed to do, brown is work with my salary position. Like I got all these colors, and like, so some weeks you'll see more brown than others, some weeks you'll see more yellow than others. A lot of weeks like pink is missing, and it's like, oh wow, I'm not purposely intentionally setting quality time with the people that I care about or myself. Or like you won't see any blue, so it's like there's no well-being activities. No wonder I'm feeling these ways. So like there's a whole bunch of ways to adopt journaling to have to cultivate a new level of connectivity with ourselves that would allow us to like see patterns. Like once I write down something and I see it, like it gives me an intricate look into maybe what's going on that I haven't paid attention to. Remember, awareness makes big things small and small things big. So things that we may not even be aware of, it makes them big. Now they're into our awareness. And once we know something, like once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. Once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. So, it's just like journaling can lead to aha moments, epiphanies and realizations, and allow us to peep patterns. And like I said, like when I couldn't record this episode yesterday, like I left and I wrote down some things. It's like, oh, what is the constant here? Fucking pressure. And I don't operate well under pressure. Like, and not in a way, because I ain't gonna let y'all chump me. Not like I can't pop out and go crazy like when the stakes is high. I mean like when I'm putting unnecessary, like if I don't get this done, my kids won't eat. If I don't do this by this time, people are gonna be left hanging. Like that shit. Like I just don't operate well like that. Like I don't create well like that. So there's ways that I can take action to minimize the presence of that type of pressure in my life, and that's self-awareness. Like that's creating a relationship with myself that promotes connectivity with myself and my needs, and that's love, that's compassion, that's understanding for myself. And so connectivity with ourselves and others, that's huge. So finally, the last tool for combating self-doubt for today: embracing uncertainty. Uncertainty is often a key feature of decision making. And it's human nature that when faced with uncertainty, we feel afraid and doubtful. Acknowledge that you can't resolve all uncertainty and that you don't need to. Acknowledge that you feel a little anxious, and that's okay. And this kind of digs back into, and I probably could combine these two, practicing self-compassion. Like you got to make room for mistakes, just like you got to make room for the unknown, and like embracing that element of life that is like, you don't know what the fuck is going to happen. Like embracing the unknown allows for us to be okay with the fact that we're anxious, be okay with the fact that we don't know. Because of course we don't know. Nobody knows. How we going to know if it's unknown? Like how we going to know the uncertain? Nobody knows. Think about like school or something. I don't know why I keep defaulting to school, but like, okay, so your parents say if you don't go to college, then you're gonna be a bum and you're gonna be in a box and you'll never be successful. And you say, well, I don't want to go to college because I want to pursue this career in skateboarding technology or some shit. I don't fucking know. This is a terrible metaphor, but I'm just saying, like, both of you, it's uncertain who is right because nobody fucking knows what's gonna happen. Nobody knows. So to have less self-doubt, to take away the edge off of self-doubt, is to come to the understanding that nobody knows. Nobody really knows. And it's very uncertain how it's going to work out. And we can use this notion of uncertainty in a way that allows for us to be okay with the anxiety that comes along with that. To turn anxiety maybe into joyful anticipation of whatever happens. And just knowing that we took the opportunity to pursue what it is that we really cared about. And I'll leave you with this story about pursuing my music full time. Like I didn't know, like I was in a point in my life where I was trying to get out of this assembly plant, and I was trying to do everything. I was doing Amazon FBA, I was doing eBay, I was doing book reselling, I was doing this, I was doing that, because I was trying to get some bread, because I needed to supplement my income so I could get out of the job that I disliked very much. And a good friend of mine told me, like, well, what happens? Like, what would you do if you could just do anything in the world? Like, what would you do full time? I was like, my music, for sure. And she was like, well, pursue that full time, like, and just give it a year. And if it doesn't work out, you can't say you didn't try. So it's like there's uncertainty. Like nobody knows what's going to happen. And now look, like I just got back from Las Vegas. They flew me out to do mindfulness and meditation at a conference. Me, like me. Do you know who I am? Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like I never could have caught. Like now I'm part of your favorite podcast. Like now I'm a owner of a media company. Now like I get paid to speak. Now I make products that help people discover their highest selves and figure out how to be emotionally compassionate with themselves to allow for the process of their unfolding. Like this is what that one decision made, but this was uncertain. Like wasn't nothing promised. And there was a lot of anxieties that came with taking that decision. But at the end of the day, like really beating myself up is an anxiety that is not necessary. Doubting myself was an anxiety that wasn't necessary. I didn't have to, but I did for plenty nights. So I'm hoping that this podcast episode allows for you to not have to beat yourself up. And if self-doubt arises, instead of pushing it away and resisting it, which will cause for self-doubt to come and hug us very tightly because anything that we resist persists, now we can welcome it in. We can investigate it. We could bring community into the picture. We have tools now to combat self-doubt. We can discover a new connectivity within ourselves. We can remember our past achievements. We can identify our values and make sure that we're acclimated to our North Star of what it is that we want our lives to be. And with these tools, like self-doubt stands no chance. Matter of fact, self-doubt becomes part of the family. Welcome. You're not as ugly as I thought you were. You are actually here to confirm the fact that I'm doing what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. You're actually here to amplify within my mind the fact that, oh yeah, like if I didn't care about what it is that I was doing, like I wouldn't doubt that I could contribute. Like, so that's just affirmation that I'm doing what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And that's it. I'm just here for a good time, not a long time, baby. You know the deal. If I've added any type of value to your life with this episode, I need you to go on Apple Podcasts and leave me a review or a rating. It doesn't have to be a 5-star review, but like I always say, if it was a 5-star tool, just give the adequate amount of stars. You feel me? Like the amount of stars that equate to the amount of value that I've been able to add. And it really helps a lot to like have those ratings on there, especially when new listeners are coming in, people who don't know what this is or what we are, the community that we're creating here. They see 5 out of 5 stars and they see 20, 30 reviews. It's like, okay, let me get this a listen. And then we bring them in and then we help change their fucking life. So let's change the world. Let's change other people's lives. Let's bring other people into the community and help other people to embrace all this goodness by going to Apple Podcasts and leaving a review for your boy. If you're on YouTube watching this, I need you to drop in the comments below, what was your favorite takeaway from today? And people go straight to the comments too before they even watch the video. So what was your favorite takeaway today? That's what you put in the comments. People see that, then they'll know that, okay, this episode is worth watching, as well as leave people that may be going through some self-doubt in their own lives right now in this moment, because people might have just went on YouTube and like help with self-doubt and Googled that in YouTube and this popped up. So in the comments, I want you to leave encouraging words for somebody who may be dealing with self-doubt in their lives today, this very moment. Share this podcast with 5 people your cousin, your brother, your sister, your mother. Tell them about this cool dude creating this cool community and that they could benefit from some of these tools being shared here today. Follow me on social media at Bryce the Third, BryceTheThird, and at You Feel That Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, spelled just like that. And if you want to support the show, it'd be greatly appreciated. We have a Patreon with 3 tiers to it. There's a private text group on the 2nd tier that you definitely want to join. And on the 3rd tier, there's a special shout out at the end of every episode of You Feel That Podcast, so you could be famous. You can hear your name as a supporter of the show every time we get to the end of an episode. I'm never tripping on whatever tier you choose on Patreon. It's all appreciated. And if you want to support the show with less of a commitment than Patreon, you could always buy me a coffee with that Buy Me a Coffee link, and all of that is down below. Or on the episode info wherever you're listening to this podcast at. And last but not least, we can't leave without our quote for the day from Vincent Van Gogh. If you hear a voice within you say you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. Thanks for tuning in to You Feel That with Bryce the Third. I'll catch y'all next time.